It'd be funny if there's a freedom of speech switch that you could also control, and it would be a perfect metaphor.
Well, that's
for our
different
current state of
because what they figured out is that if they can just make sure that we don't have any public options for communication, then hey, every thing that we say to each other goes through a private company. Private companies can do whatever they want, and this is like one of the greatest moves that we didn't really notice. Electronic and digital speech makes every other kind of speech irrelevant. And because there is no public option, guess what? There's always somebody named Sundar or Jack or Mark who controls whether or not you can speak and what it appears to be that is being said and whose stuff is weighted more highly than others. It's an absolute nightmare. And by the way, the Silicon Valley intellectual elite, Lord knows what is going on. People are so busy making money that they are not actually upholding any of the values. So Silicon Valley is sort of maximally against it. It has this kind of libertarian, free, progressive sheen to it when it goes to Burning Man. And then it quickly just imposes rules on all of the rest of us as to what we can say to each other if we're not part of the inner elite.
So what do you think the ideal of the freedom of speech means?
Well, this is very interesting. I keep getting lectured on social media by people who have no idea how much power the Supreme Court has to abstract things. Mm-hmm. Right now, you have a concept of the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law would have to say that our speech that matters is free, at least at the level of ideas. I don't claim that I have the right to endanger your life with speech or to reveal your private information. So I really am not opining about directed speech intended to smear you, and that's a different kettle of fish. And maybe I have some rights to do that, but I don't think that they're infinite. What I am saying is that the freedom of speech for ideas is essential that the court abstract it and shove it down the throat of Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, whoever these infrastructure companies are, because it really matters which abstraction you use. The case that I really like is search and seizure. If I have private data that I entered in my house that is stored on a server that you hold outside of my house, but I view is the abstraction that it's only the perimeter of my house that I have the right to protect, or does my password extend the perimeter of my house to the data on the server that is located outside of my house? These are choices for the court, and the court is supposed to pretend that they can divine the true intent of the framers. But all of the sort of, and I've taken to calling this the problem of internet hyenas, people with ready-made answers and LOLs and you're such a moron. These folks love to remind you, it's a private company, dude, it can do whatever it wants. Mm-hmm. No, the court has to figure out what the abstractions are. And just the way, for example, the Griswold decision found that there was a penumbra because there was too little in the Constitution. Therefore, there were all sorts of things implied that couldn't be in the document. Somebody needs to come up with the abstraction right now that says Jack cannot do whatever he wants.
It's really, so you say the courts, but it's also us, people who think about the world. It's you.
No. It's the courts. But if the courts don't do this, we're toast.
But we can still think about it. I mean,
but I don't feel like going down the drain.
Here's what I'm thinking about, because it's tricky how far it should extend. I mean, that's an ongoing conversation. Don't you think the interpretation of the law?
I think I'm trying to say something very simple, and it's just not going to be popular for a while. Tech dwarfs previous forms of communication. Print or shouting in a public park. And so, I can go to a public park and I can shout if I get a permit. Even there, I think it was in the late 1980s in Atlanta, we came up with free speech zones where you can't protest at a convention, but you can go to a park 23 miles out and they'll fence off a little area where you can have your free speech. Yeah. No, speech is dangerous. Ideas are dangerous. We are a country about danger and risk. And yes, I agree that targeted speech at individuals trying to reveal their private stuff and all that that is very different. So forget a lot of that stuff. But free speech for ideas is meant to be dangerous. And people will die as a result of free speech. The idea that one life is too much is preposterous. Like, why did we send, if one life is preposterous, why did we send anyone to the beaches of Normandy? I just don't get this.